Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks for tuning in today. I've got a great show in store for you. I've got my friend Laura Witte here today, and Laura has been a mortgage professional since 1998. So she's seen some things, y'all. Okay. And we're going to be unpacking all of it today in this conversation that I'm super excited about. But Laura is not only a mortgage professional, she's also a team leader. She's a speaker. She's passionate about bringing hope and possibility to the world to help people believe that they can achieve anything they set their minds to and know that there are no limits. So you can understand why she's here with me today and how aligned she is philosophically with the Pursuing Freedom mindset. And what's a really cool story from last year, we're recording this in early 2024. In 2023, she started the year with, in her opinion, a very slow month with only 2 million in volume, and had a little bit of a panic moment when she decided at the end of January that regardless of what everybody was saying about how it was going to be a bad year, that was not going to be her story. So she took the wheel and ended the year at 86 million in volume in 2023, one of her best years ever. She's in the Atlanta, Georgia market. And as you can imagine, we have a lot to unpack. So I'm just going to shut up now and bring Laura on. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I was joking with Laura before we started recording that we like to start from the beginning. And since the beginning is of her story that's really interesting was way back in high school, this could be a long podcast. No, but I told Laura, I'm like, give us the cliff notes because I want to dig into the juicy stuff. But she does have a fascinating story about perseverance, and I'd love for her to share it. So Laura, with no further ado, just bring us back to the roots and tell us how you got into this crazy,
Absolutely.
how you are thriving like you are today in this current market.
Sure. So, yeah, we talked a little bit about high school. I won't go into too much detail, but I did barely finish high school. I basically went to the ninth grade and then skipped 2 years and went back and got my high school diploma in 12th grade, and then decided college wasn't for me. It was many reasons at that time, financially, as well as I just wanted to get moving and started a business and started another business and wasn't really sure, like a lot of kids, not sure what I wanted to do with my life. So, in a few years later, in 98, I was in my mid 20s. I was watching, what would be the equivalent of like the HGTV kind of, you know, Property Brothers, flip a house, type show. And I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to buy my first house. And I went to a bank because I had no clue. I wasn't raised with financial literacy. My mom raised me, with as much information and education as she could, but she was a single mom, a teacher. So we didn't really talk about credit or mortgages or stuff like that. So I went to a bank, found out my credit was awful. I had no idea there was, credit cards on there. There were different things on there. And then the lady was like, okay, I'll talk to you next week. And I'm like, I found a house I want to buy. What do I do? And so between Friday and Monday, I got a job as a loan officer because I couldn't wait. It was, back in the Wild West days of broker shops, like all over the place before heavy regulation. I mean, I just went and answered an ad, and Monday I started, like literally, like Monday, I started in this broker shop and had no idea what I was doing. I was reading scripts and answering phone calls that were coming in. And it took me a few days, but I realized that this was not the right place for me. And the calls that were coming in were pretty misleading. It was one of those, call me about your mortgage, as soon as possible, kind of fear-based marketing. And so I started selling the right way that I thought was the right way. And the owner and I kind of butted heads, but that I think I was there a couple months. I got my own loan done and I signed the first month like 19 loans. No idea what I was doing. I don't even remember if half of them closed. But I remember talking to people who at that time, the market was different. The rates were double digit. People were coming down from refinancing those rates into like the eights and nines. Everybody was so happy to get that. Um, and so I just felt good talking to these people who were like stuck financially, who had lost hope. And that sort of pushed me into starting my own company at that time many years ago called Truth in Lending because I saw so much I didn't believe in, and wanted to bring the truth back into lending at that time. Felt there was not a lot of transparency. So that's sort of how I started and my passion for helping and advocating for people.
I love that. I love the name of the company, Truth in Lending. I didn't get
Yeah.
in until '06, but it still was the Wild West. And I remember the same thing, just quiet observations of certain conversations that strongly lacked ethics and feeling like, do I belong here in this space? I
Hmm.
mean, I'm like an alien because there's no way I'm ever operating with those
Yeah.
principles.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then I remember even at times where I considered leaving the industry thinking like I'm not in the right place, then I would remind myself that if I leave the industry, then who else is going to step in
That's
and give people
exactly.
honest advice? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
similar
So
upbringing, I guess.
just and to clarify, the company that I'm with now, that I'm one of the owners, is called Highland Mortgage, and the Truth in Lending, that was a company, is now a team. So I joined forces with some friends that I've been in the business with for almost 20 years, and we are out of Atlanta, Georgia, called Highland Mortgage. So
I love that. Okay, so talk us through the evolution. So you get in '98, obviously,
mhm.
10 years later, you've got your feet under you, everything is probably rocking and rolling. And then 2008, 2009, how
Right.
did that affect you in your business
Yeah.
and your life?
I mean, I remember, I looking back, you remember moments in your life that are good, bad, indifferent, whatever. I remember the moment IndyMac went down. I was standing in my office like, what? IndyMac just closed? What is going on? And it just kind of spiraled from there. Yeah, I had just had my daughter, my third child, was a single mom running a company, and thought, this is crazy. I want to see my kids. The market was crashing. People were short selling, foreclosures, all the things that happened. You just have to watch the movie The Big Short to see it, that lived through that all happened. Um, and I held on as long as I could in my with my company, because I had people that worked for me that had kids. So I was using my retirement accounts, my savings, to kind of weather the storm at the time. I learned a lot from that, and I think that helped me coming back and off of 23 as well. But we ended up closing. I went to work for a bank for a little while, and I had a lot of debt. I had some houses that I chose to short sale at the time because I had three kids. I had to take care of them. I couldn't focus, on anything other than that. I had a newborn and a 2-year old and a 4-year-old. So so that was my main focus at the time. So I think, the crash was a big learning experience for me. I think it made me wiser and stronger, but I dug myself out of debt. I went, I went to look at, should I do bankruptcy? I have all this debt, I have all this business debt. And I said, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm alive. I'm still working. I'm not judging anybody who does. I have family and friends who've done it. It was just not for me. And I just worked and negotiated and made payments and paid down and all this other stuff. And I got out of debt in 2 years, after the crash, which was really difficult, but it was a decision that I made that I feel kind of made me stronger moving forward. And not everyone has that opportunity to do that as well. So again, no judgment. It was just the path that I chose.
So how did that experience A, prepare you for, and B, look so different in 2023 when a lot of the people in the mortgage space specifically, but real estate agents as well, saw 30, 40, 50% decline
Yeah.
in business after the boom of 2020, 2021, et cetera. Is like we had this extreme boom followed by, I wouldn't call it a crash, but it's just like a lot of people experienced significant decline in production last year. How
Yeah.
did you write a different story for yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't, it definitely wasn't a crash. I agree. I like to think of it, it was like a storm. It was a big storm. And I think it was a much harder year than any year I've ever had. And I think talking to people, a lot of people felt that way. I think with the crash, the real crash, like in 2008, 9, 10, there was movement. there were foreclosures. People were coming out of the, like, oh, I can get a deal on this house and that house. So there was movement. In 23, it sort of just stood still in a lot of ways. People were, oh, I'm not sure I should buy now. You have all these social media posts why you should buy now. I think a lot of people maybe got turned off by some of them because there were so many, and at the same time, some people maybe should have waited. I don't know. I think there was a lot of people that could have bought that didn't. I mean, it's all sort of mixed up. And I think there was just so much information out there that people weren't sure what to do. That's what I think. There was just a lot of information and people were just confused. So I think what I did, like you were talking about, in January of 23, we closed 2 million, which to me was not a good year, or not a good start to the year. And and I did kind of panic. I freaked out. We are commission based. Loan officers and realtors were commission based. So we are 30, 60 days in the future for our income. So then at that time I went to the Mortgage Girlfriends Conference, and saw Cindy Garza, and spoke for the first time, pushed through a fear of public speaking a year ago, and told my story about my childhood, how I grew up and got in the mortgage business and stuff, and just really pushed through some fears. And I looked at the year and saw posts, and I saw all the, my friends saying this and that, and loan officers freaking out, and thought that this, like you said, this is not going to be my story. My husband works with me, and we have such a good team, that we just sort of all sat down and said, what can we do? And I can share with you some of the things we did, but I think that was the thing, that we all just decided this was not how we're going to go down for the year.
Well, I definitely want to unpack some of the things that you did. And I want to include in that, you know, mindset management, because you and I talked before and I loved what you shared. So I'll let you share that again, like in terms of your perspective around limitations around what you believe to be possible or not. But you also have to consider the fears of your husband and your team members. And it was interesting because a lot of the coaching that I was doing last year was addressing the morale first and foremost, because the what to do is great if you're willing to do it. If you can
Right.
feel strong in your belief that doing this is going to bring me a result and I'm willing to do it. And I think a lot what I saw last year was a lot of people paralyzed by the fear and using language like, once XYZ happens, then I can thrive, right? When rates come down, when this happens, when that happens, instead of just saying like, I'm going to thrive in spite of all the things that I cannot control. So I'd like to know, number one, how do you personally handle that piece with your mindset? And then secondly, how that plays into action planning for yourself as well as your team as a whole.
I think I started to tell my clients, people were starting to say the same thing I heard from lots of our loan officers and, in the business and realtors. I don't know if it's a good time to buy. I'm not sure if I should buy. The rates are too high. All of these things. Same story. And, all you can do is make a decision on the information you have in front of you. You can only do that, and you can't decide, I'm going to buy later. What does later mean? What are the rates going to be? How do you even base one of the largest purchases of your life on later? Oh, wait till rates come down. What specifically do you mean down? Down to what? They're probably never going to come down back to the threes or fours. So what are you waiting for? So I think that sort of got my brain going on, all I can do is control what is happening right in front of me. And this is what's happening. There is a storm of going on with rates, low inventory, people freaking out, people unsure, misinformation, all of these things. So I think I just took it upon myself to say, okay, well, I can control this. Like you said, you can only control what you can control. I can control this. I can control what I do. I can control my clients to some degree. I can help them control what my clients do, what they do. So, for example, somebody would call me and say, I'm not sure, call me back in a few months. And I would say, well, okay, you're right. Maybe it's not a good time to buy. I felt like I used my husband coined this. I felt like I used the power of maybe. Maybe it's not a good time to buy, but maybe it is. And you're not going to know unless you look at the information in front of you and we determine that rather than you just listening to the news and reacting to that. You don't know until you find out. So let's look at it. And if it's not a good time, then I will tell you it's not a good time because the numbers don't lie. It's not me trying to sell you. It's not me saying, oh, it's a great time to buy, buy now, you got to buy. I mean, of course, it's always good to buy real estate, but is it a good time to buy for this particular person? I don't know. Let's talk about it. So I think that opened up people that were shut down. They were shut down, like you said, they were frozen, they were scared to possibility of maybe. And that maybe brings hope to people. So if I could do that for my clients, I could do that for myself and my team. Maybe there's a way to succeed in this market. What if we tried this? What haven't we thought of yet? Like all of these words that open things back up, that get things moving in your brain again instead of being stuck.
I love that. I often say, our fear says, what if it doesn't work? And
Mhm.
your choice is to change the narrative in the stories in your brain that become the excuses for why you do nothing and say, but what if it works? I mean,
What if
what
it
if it
works?
works? And
Right, exactly.
you said
Yeah.
earlier, it was difficult, but it was the decision. And we talk a lot about how the difference between you and the life you want to have is the decision to do it. And the difference between you and anybody else, like you having closed 86 million, was a decision you made to have the conviction to be creative and say, maybe there's a way. So like,
Right.
I love how you say the word maybe brings hope. It's so awesome. So what were some of the things that you did?
Mhm.
Something I'm just curious about your perspective on this. I hear a lot of, I just need to get back to the basics. I just need to get back to the fundamentals. And there's a part of me that has resistance around that because it feels like someone saying, I'm going backwards. And I often challenge them to say, instead of saying going back, because you're not the same person you were, the market's not the same that it was. You've evolved, you have different skills, you have more expertise, more contacts, more everything. So instead of going back, let's look forward and design the future of your business based on the life you've lived and the experience you have today. So how much of your conversations or thoughts were around getting back to doing what we used to do versus innovating because the circumstances had changed?
Yeah, I think it was that's an interesting point. So going back to what you used to do. That's interesting. I think that you learned so to kind of spin that a different way, I think you learned some things when you first started that maybe you are just bringing back or you're using again. It's resources, it's all skills and resources that you use. So it's not necessarily going back, but some of it was back to basics. Like I went to open houses, I went to caravans, like a lot of them, like three, four in one day. I mean, I hustled. It was mindset, meets, what is it? Sweating. I mean, like, work. I mean, it wasn't just all mindset. I think there's a healthy balance of both. I mean, you can work your butt off and not know what the hell you're doing and not be confident and not get anywhere, but you could also have great mindset and just sit there and do nothing and then nothing happens. So it's a joint venture of mindset and hustle. But yeah, there were some things that were kind of old school. I mean, like for example, the 2-1 buy down hasn't been around forever. That's something from like 15, 20 years ago that was recoined and everybody's like, oh, the buy down. How many buy downs did I close in 23? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm zero or 100.
One, maybe, maybe one. But there were so many buzzwords around buy downs, like everywhere. Like it's in Atlanta. I don't know about nationally, but in Atlanta it was crazy. But I closed like one of them because number one, I don't know that I like a product coming off of the crash in '09, in '08, and all those option arms and like deferred payments that people got hit with later because it'll be okay. The market will change. You'll refinance. No, like I just want people to know what they're going to pay. A bit conservative in that sense, and so that didn't really buy into that. But yeah, there were some things that were old school. But I think that one of the things is that one of the big things is that I have this great team, and I'm able to rely on them. They've been with me, one person for 15 years, another person for almost 10. Then my husband has been working with me for almost 10 years. And last year, I think he really like changed a lot and grew too. I think we did together because he kind of emerged as our marketing leader. He was doing things here and there. He was originating, he was doing some marketing, some events, but he sort of emerged as, hey, I can do all this marketing, and he knocked it out of the park. So I got lucky in that sense because we hustled a new product that we had. And by hustle, I mean we like contacted every realtor and said, hey, your property may qualify for this lender, grant, for the census tract grant. And we sort of built our realtor group up with listings more than we ever have. So I mean, there's lots of things that we did. It wasn't just one thing, it was a lot of things. And if something didn't work, okay, great, we'll try something else. We didn't get stuck in like, oh no, we failed, this was horrible. We just kind of brushed it off and kept going. You just don't have time to get stuck in it. Like when my daughter comes home, if she had a bad lacrosse practice or she lost a game, I say, okay, that sucked. That felt horrible. I know. You have 5 minutes to feel bad. Okay, 5 minutes. Feel really bad, get it out. Or 10 minutes. You want 10 minutes? Okay. But what did you learn from it? What can you do better next time? And just keep going. I mean, what is the point of being stuck in, in failure or, missing out? Like just you tried it, it didn't work. Okay, let's try something different.
You probably have no idea how much people adore you. That is like, because that kind of mindset, you make it sound so simple, but
It is that simple.
well, I agree with you, which is why that's why you're here on the show.
That's so
But
nice of you. Thank you, Eric.
I just mean that, people, I don't know, like having that kind of mindset of the circumstances are what the circumstances are. I didn't win the game. I didn't win that deal. Me sitting around wallowing in sadness over something that's already in the past tense is holding me back from whatever is on the horizon, which is the
Right.
potential to expand. And
Yes.
the reality is that a lot of the content of the podcast over this past year has been intentionally not to ignore circumstances. Okay. Circumstances are circumstances. Okay. You can't change the rate, you can't change the market. And so what are you going to do about that? And now what? It's like the idea
Yeah.
being that, okay, we acknowledge we are a witness to changes we can't control. And it's not just in the market. I mean, things happen in our personal life that blindside us, tragedies happen, or divorces happen, or things that can really take the wind out of your sails, sickness and with loved ones, losing a pet, anything, right? And all of a sudden a circumstance has been dealt to you and you still choose to thrive and move through it and move on. And not to say that it didn't affect you, but it's like I was talking to you before we started recording, this Steve Jobs quote that's really stuck with me, that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. I look back and I see some of the hardest times in my life led to doors opening and miracles happening and the wins, right? But when you connect all the dots to get you to where you are today, you can have faith that you can't see all the dots. You can't know, like you said, what the rates are going to do. I always told my clients, if rates go down a year from now, you're going to be thrilled. And if rates go up a year from now, you're going to be thrilled. So you're right. Can you afford the house now? And is this in your goals to have a house? And let's figure out what you can afford and go from
Yeah.
there. So yeah, I mean, I just am mirroring everything you said. So, okay. So the caravans and leveling up the marketing, can you share any specific strategies that you found to be impactful, especially given the morale, not even just in the industry, but also with your clients? Because the reason I said like people must adore you is because as you were sharing your perspective, it made me think that you must be a lighthouse in the storm to your realtor friends. Like I
Oh,
imagine
thank
that
you.
people that know you see you as bright lights on and the ships come to port, and that there's an aspect of you showing up on the caravans and at the open houses with your mindset and your perspective that drew people to you in times where they maybe weren't feeling that strong within. And also how you showed up in your community when perhaps there was a lot of doubt and fear in just the client base.
Yeah, I think that you really like hit the nail on the head. I think that we provided support, and we had how do you say, we believe in giving. When I say we, my whole team, my husband, my team, my assistants, my coordinators, we believe in going above and beyond and giving support. So I think we were out there saying, what can we do for you? Not what can you do for me? Not send me business. I don't think I've asked for business. I had someone interviewed me. I did a panel and they said, how do you ask for business? And I was like, I don't know. I don't ask
Me
for business.
too. I always felt like I never had to ask for business or even talk
Yeah,
about mortgages because people knew what I did.
right.
It's like just give more value than you hope to receive in payment. And then
Exactly.
when someone has a
Right.
boring mortgage question, they know who to come to.
Right. We provided value. That's the thing, is that we provided value to people and support. And they felt that, they saw it, they heard it. I mean, it in a time that was so difficult for a lot of people. So I think that was a big part of it. We also expanded our referral and realtor database because so many people were slower. So we thought, okay, who do we want to work with? We want to work with people we like. We honestly work with people we really like. We like these people. We go to happy hours with them. We go to do caravans. Like, we like being around them. So we found more people we liked and we worked with them. So we expanded that. At this part of my life, where the age I'm at and my career, I just want to work with people that I enjoy being around. So does that happen all the time? Well, I mean, yeah, actually, mostly, yeah. I mean, I think it's fun and it's nice. So we expanded that. We helped, I believe, I called this my personal affordability initiative. So I was out to help people understand that they could still afford to buy a house and showed them how to do that. So that was my personal affordability initiative. And I did that with like one of the new products that we had, which was what we call the Dream Maker, which was a census track program, but it was the most like least conservative. It didn't have an income restriction. You didn't have to be a first time home buyer. So it was fantastic. So we used that to be able to offer below market rates to certain, zip codes. So that was a big thing to help people. And then also there were people that just, when you don't do this for a living, you don't know. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing with, investments or my taxes. So I have somebody great that I go to. So people need to come to people like me to be able to say, okay, what can I afford? So looking at their whole picture, okay, I see it very clearly. There was this guy that came to me and said, I want an $800,000 house, but I don't think I can afford it. I can only afford 500. Okay, so do your application. Let's take a look. So I got on the phone with him. He was already paying a mortgage between all of his debt, his car note, and his current rent for 800,000, and he didn't even know it. He had no idea. So I said, okay, great. You have this much down. Take half of that, pay off your debt. He paid down his car and refinanced it. And he got an $800,000 house and actually paid less than what he was paying currently. But he was sitting in his apartment that he was renting, paying all of this debt that, when the mortgage rates went up, what else went up? Credit card debt. Credit card debt went up. Credit card rates went up to the highest level like they've been. So I think people just need to be educated about that and look at the options. So I think I also got super creative, which I love. That is one of my favorite things to do. The harder the loan, the more I love it. It's like a puzzle. I used to love video games when I was a kid. So I think that's kind of my, like, I want to look and play with, do Tetris with their with their finances. But on the other side of that, I really care and want to help people. So it's like this is like a perfect job for me to be able to figure out the hard stuff and then really help people. So I hope that wasn't the long explanation about what we did.
No, I'm just like
Um,
laughing. There's so many things you say. I used to joke that I was
mm,
a mortgage nerd because I loved the puzzles and
yes.
I loved exactly what you're talking about when someone comes to you and they don't think that they can do whatever, and then you get a hold of all the pieces of the puzzle and you start moving things around. You're like, if we do this, this, and this, it's going to actually save you $1,800 a month. And people are like, what?
Mhm.
Like, it's so cool. So
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, they
that.
don't know. And it's okay they don't know because they don't do it for a living. It's not like I've had people be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm so ignorant." Like, it's okay. You don't know what you don't know. So it's not a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
Well, you did mention happy hour earlier, and I know in your time zone, we're probably at that time.
No,
But really,
no happy hours today. So
I just want to honor your time and thank you so much for
thank you.
coming on and sharing your story. It's really inspiring to have folks like you on the show that, you come from a giver's heart and a place of contribution, and yet you've achieved these high levels of success. Of course, it's the mindset, it's the intention to be of value combined with the taking of action, which is really important for everybody listening. But more than anything, like you said, that you want to leave people with hope. And I think that you've done a great job at doing that. And I hope that everybody listening is
Thank you.
feeling more hopeful than they were before they started listening to this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And Laura, before we hop off, how can folks find you, follow you, get a hold of you if they need a mortgage or they just want to, follow all along the bright light of Laura Witte?
Thank you. Yeah. So my Instagram is Truth and Lending. So TRUTHAND Lending.
Love it. Awesome. All right, friends, at my Pursuing Freedom community, I love you. I appreciate you. And I'm always going to beg you at the end, if you haven't taken 2 seconds to leave a review wherever you consume this, I would appreciate it. It helps us continue to attract amazing guests like Laura and help this content get found so you too can build a life you don't need a vacation from. Make it an awesome day. I'll see you next time.